Welcome, welcome to another edition of FIA, brought to you by NNPA and Black Press USA. I am your host for tonight's really interesting guest. She is a young author and she's a PR person. Her name is Natasha T. Brown. Natasha, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Well, listen, clearly your skills are in PR. I know that you've been doing it. We're going to delve into that. But I was on Instagram and you put out a post. It was your new book, which we're going to be talking about today. And I said, I love it. I've got to know about her and this story. And as soon as I sent you a message, you responded immediately.
Yes, it's funny because you reached out to me the night after I announced that book, the day after I announced that book. And I remember announcing it on live. And then I just prayed. I was like, okay, God, you have to be my PR person. And literally the next day you reached out to me. So I was like, answer prayer.
I know. And you sent that message to me and it just made me smile and it really made me feel good because I do try to pick topics. Normally we deal with artists, it's actors, A-list actors and artists, but I really do like giving information and sharing great stories and inspiring stories to our viewers. So we're so excited to have you here. So first, let's learn more about Natasha T. Brown. Who are you and where are you from?
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, I'm a woman of God.
All right.
I am originally from Chicago, but I was raised in the Washington, D.C. area. And so pretty much I have been in the communications industry for all my life, my professional life. And I started out doing journalism and public relations, as you mentioned. And most recently, I transitioned into publishing. And I do a lot of publishing and book coaching, but I'm also a minister and a missionary. So I was recently in Tanzania, East Africa, serving on the missions field as a theological educator. And that was amazing. So I was there for 6 months. And
I know that must be amazing. Now, I want to ask you a quick question because your background, I want people to merge and understand how amazing things that have been in your life with the PR background. So what university or college did you go to?
Yeah, so for undergraduate school, I went to Morgan State University.
Okay.
I was there. Yes. So that was like one of the best experiences of my life. So I went to a HBCU, Morgan State in Baltimore, and then I earned a master of communicate. No, my master. My master's is in professional writing from Towson University. So I have a master's degree in professional writing from Towson University. And then I have a second master's degree in divinity with a concentration on marketplace ministry from Regent University.
When you first started out, Natasha, career-wise, young 17 or 18-year-old, and said, okay, this is a track that I'm going to take, what did you think or want for your life at that time? Do you remember what trajectory you wanted?
Yeah, I wanted to be a big time communications person. Like my goal was to be like corporate communications, working in New York in Times Square, like big time, like, Olivia Pope type, what I mean?
That's a good one.
I wanted to be. And that was really the trajectory that, the life that I was really trying to build for myself. I remember graduating with my bachelor's degree from Morgan, and I really wanted to move to New York. So I applied to NYU for grad school. I applied for a job at MTV, BET, like whoever was in New York. And I went to MTV. I remember interviewed for a position there and I didn't get the position and I was crushed. I was like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be in New York. I'm supposed to be this big time communications person. This is not the way that the plan was supposed to go. I was supposed to get this job and I was hurt. But then it was like, my path sort of redirected from there.
I understand. So, we start off with, knowing about your childhood and knowing about your desires for writing and the master's degrees that you have. But before we get to where we are now and the happy ending and your connection with God, there's a big story that turned your life upside down and put you on the path that you're currently on now. Can we talk about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So during that time of me chasing my big dreams of being this big time PR communications person, I started a business in 2009. And that being in the entertainment industry around a lot of artists and, all of that smoke and mirrors and things like that, and just entertainment, I was introduced to someone that ended up becoming, close to me. And so I ended up getting in a relationship with that person, and it turned south. It ended up being very toxic, very violent, very abusive, just very toxic. Both of us were really toxic. I was very immature. He was very immature. I wasn't that young. I was in my 20s, like late 20s.
No, it's still, was that your first, and if I can say this, was that your first abusive relationship?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And how did that start off? Because you're bright, you're energetic, you're beautiful. How did that start off? And I ask you that question because oftentimes, you have groups and say, "Oh, that wouldn't happen to me," and people have to be careful about saying that. But how did it start with you? Now that you're looking back, hindsight.
Yeah. So let me tell you, I was one of those people. I never thought that would be me. I had been a college professor at Towson before that. I was a publicist. People knew my name in DC. And I was that one of those people that said it could never be me. And it started on 4th of July one year. And we were at a family gathering, and we just started arguing. And I actually was working for a big reality show. And I was doing publicity for a reality TV star. And I was working on that day. And so it was kind of a stressful holiday. But he and I got in an argument, and he pushed me down the stairs.
What?
And outside, we were outside one of my family members' houses, and he pushed me down the stairs, and someone that I'm close to kind of saw but didn't see. And he came up and he was like, "Hey, you just pushed her." And I was like, "No." And I defended him. And immediately it started with me defending him, and was like, no, everything's okay. It's going to be all right. And, I tried to cover it up. And from that first cover up, it just ended up getting worse and worse. And so that was the summer of 2012. And
Natasha, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to ask you this real quick. What in you in that moment would make you do that? Defend him instantly, since it's never happened to you before?
I did not want there to be drama in my family. Like, we were with my family, and I didn't want my brothers and his friends and my mother and everyone to come out and just start chaos. So you
were worried about everyone else but yourself.
Yes. Absolutely. And I don't mean to laugh, like, it's definitely not a funny situation, but you're absolutely right. That's exactly what happened.
No, but this is what this show is about. This is about truth and speaking your truth. I ask you these questions because, again, domestic violence is not only something that happens to women, it happens to men, but it's the people that we hear about it happening to, these people, some of them you would never suspect. They're CEOs, they're presidents, they're artists, they're singers, they're actors. And I want to make a connection so people can understand, why this is happening to them, or why maybe they made the decision that they did. So after that incident, how much time lapsed before the next situation?
Oh, maybe weeks, not long at all.
Okay.
That summer, I actually call that the summer, like the summer from hell, like that summer 2012. That summer, it was terrible. This scar on my head, you probably can see it. These scars, all of that came on my face that summer from all of the situations that we went through. Mm-hmm.
So, did he, not that it makes it different, did he say, "I'm sorry"? Did he do anything to kind of take responsibility during this time?
Sometimes it was like, "I'm sorry, like, I just lost it. My bad, babe. Like, it's all good. Like, we good." Like, just kind of brushing over it and saying, "I'm sorry," that way. At other times, no, it was so many different incidents. And it wasn't like, and here's the thing, I like talking about domestic violence to empower people. But to me, it was like, it's weird because I wasn't ever like scared. I wasn't ever like, oh my God, I'm so scared for my life. although I should have been.
Right.
It was like if he hit me, I hit him. You know what I mean? Like it was
Right.
like I was a
That's
fighter.
a part of that is a part of us, of a person protecting themselves and not realizing that the fact that they're saying they're not afraid, they probably really are. As far as not, that's just a defense of saying I'm in control. I know it. I hit him back, he hits me back, which we know that's never ever acceptable on either side. So you go through that. Are family members saying anything to you? You talked to me just right now. There's 3 visual scars on you, or at least one that you talked about. Are family members saying anything to you? Have you seen this in your family that they may have just say, "Oh, that's just the way things are"?
No, I've never seen that in my family. And from what I know, like nothing has ever happened like that in my family. Probably maybe when I was a baby in situations that, I don't visibly remember, you know what I mean? Like, so I don't remember growing up like that. But yeah, my family ended up finding out, all these things that happened to me. I mean, not all of them, but yeah, my family definitely found out because the police were involved many times.
Wow.
I really didn't want to be around my family at that point. So he and I, at one point that summer, we just were like going from house to house, like living with different people. And we would get kicked out of places for fighting because the police would get called. And then whoever we were staying with was like, y'all got to go. And we would go somewhere else. It was like we were on the run. And I remember when I finally left that first time, in 2012, I had to run behind. We got in a fight and he had broke my ribs and I couldn't really run that much. And I just remember hiding behind a bush and calling, a friend and coming to get me. And I went to the hospital for a while and, yeah, it was crazy.
And that's the first time you left.
Mm-hmm.
So how long were you dating before you found the strength and help to leave?
Like for good?
Yes.
Probably 3 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time. It could have been longer. It's so much longer for many people, but yeah, 3 years. And the thing that made me really leave was, number one, I just kept looking at my dreams. And I kept saying, you know what, this is what I want for my life. Like, I want these things for my life. And this can't happen with this person, right? I stayed for as long as I did. Honestly, I felt so guilty with leaving. I didn't want to leave him because I was like, who's going to help him? Like, who's going to take care of him? Like, who's going to pay bills? Like, it was crazy. Like, it was crazy. And I can't even believe that I thought like that back then, but I was so worried about protecting him that I didn't leave, but when I should have left. And the reasons why I finally left, I left a few times and came back and we were friends and I came back and things like that. But I remember I just was like, my dreams can't happen with him. Like, I want these things for my life. And he is like literally counterproductive. Like, it can't happen. So when I finally was like, you got to go, I can't deal with you anymore. That ended up being a huge fight. That was like a crazy situation. Then, I don't even know the sequence of everything. It's just like crazy how things happen. But yeah.
So you got out of that. And then I guess at that point, let's talk about how it really changed your life, because you're in a totally different place now. Yeah. You are in a happy state and you're connected with God. So after that, pulling yourself together. So did you have to live with someone, stay with someone? And then how did you start making your dream become a reality for you?
So, okay. 2014 was like a year, because it first happened in 2012. We ended up getting a place together and we were together 2013. We moved to another place that was really, really nice. And then in 2014, January 2nd of 2014, he and I were still together. We were living together. And I remember we went to basically run an errand for his daughter, like pay for his daughter to take tutoring. And someone attacked him out of nowhere at that point. I know who the someone was, but we didn't know at that point. And he was attacked out of nowhere. I thought it was like a fight. So, and he wasn't really moving. It was like he was frozen. So of course, me trying to protect him, I got out of the car and I was like trying to break it up and like pull him out of that situation and get him in the car. And it was just ended up being this whole kind of like rumble. And it was nighttime, it was snowing outside. And when I finally got him in the car, it was all this blood on him. And I was like, what is going on? And his head was like slumped over. He was like, take me to the hospital. He could hardly talk. And I got him to the hospital, rushed him there, and found out that he had been stabbed. And he was stabbed 9 times. And so while I'm in the hospital, just waiting for him, I didn't know how many times he was stabbed at that point, but I'm waiting and praying and things like that. And the police come and begin to ask me what happened. And I started to tell them like, hey, you know, we were dropping off a money order for his daughter and he was attacked. I tried to break it up and they kept asking me the same question over and over. No, tell us really what happened. I'm like, this is what happened. And they're like, no, ma'am, tell us what happened. We know what happened. And I'm like, I'm confused. I don't know what you're talking about. And so they told me to turn around and they handcuffed me. And
oh my goodness.
And they took me to the precinct. And there is when I found out that basically everyone who was out there lied and said that I stabbed him and 2 other people who was out there. So for the next 9 months of my life, I was pretty much fighting for my life and my freedom. When he gained consciousness, he did tell the truth that I didn't have anything to do with it. And but they didn't believe him because of our history of domestic violence. So we had been to, I had pressed charges against him before. So they basically made it look like I was just an abused woman who was getting back at her boyfriend by stabbing him. So the prosecutors didn't believe that I didn't have anything to do with it because of domestic violence. So I ended up finding a really good lawyer after a few months. And she was like, don't worry, it's going to be okay. I'm going to get you out of this. Like, I just saw you on Fox 5 because I was a publicist and I was on television sometimes with clients. And she's like, you're not going to go down for this. Like, I got you. So I trusted her. And the day before I was supposed to go to court, she was like, hey, like, it's all good. I talked to the prosecutor. They're going to drop the charges. So she like fought for me and proved my innocence. But yeah, it was crazy. And so at that point, I started to really pray because he and I were still friends. We weren't living together. We weren't even supposed to be around each other. I had a restraining order against him, but we were still together on the, like, behind everyone's backs. And so, I ended up praying and was like, God, what can I do? I'm still angry. I was so mad. And he told me to write. And he was like, just write. And I was like, write? Okay, fine. And I thought I was writing a hate letter. I thought I was going to write about all the people who had betrayed me and why I hated them. But when I started to write, God began to reveal my journey to me in the form of blessings. Not saying that what I've been through was a blessing, but that he blessed me in the midst of all of that stuff. So he started to reveal like how he had blessed me, how now I have faith. Now I know who my real friends are. I have this circle who are real people and all the fake people are gone away, and how he sharpened me with discernment and how I'm fearless and how now I can have peace. And that was the last blessing. So that journal entry, when he told me to write, it turned into my first book called 10 Blessings of Betrayal, a spiritual journey of rebuilding through tragedy. When I published that book, and I was still nervous to publish because I thought I was just writing. I didn't want to tell all of my business. But again, the Lord made me do it. And it was a year to the date of when that happened. On January 2nd of 2015, he told me to publish it. So the next month, 6 weeks later on Valentine's Day, I published that book and my life changed. Black Enterprise reached out to me, was on there, different magazines, General Motors. I had the GM of diversity marketing had been following me on Twitter, didn't even know it, because I was a publicist, right? So She was following me on Twitter and she was like, hey, Natasha, I love you. I want to fly you into Vegas and make you an influencer for the GM Gospel Stellar Music Awards. And so we're going to fly you out here. And I was like, what? And then, so that happened. And then people started reaching out to me, asking me if I could work with domestic violence victims, if I could share my story, if I could host women's programs. And then, so that was one thing that happened. And the second thing that happened is that people started to read the book and asked me if I could help them write their own books, if I could write for them, or if I could coach them. And so I started as a ghostwriter in the publishing industry. Wow. And I've ghostwritten now in the past 5 years over 30 books for today's top ministers, top gospel artists and celebrities. And I've been just blessed to work with really amazing influencers and entrepreneurs and just, you know, even people, regular people, everyone. God has just been so good and faithful. But I started to write other people's stories. And from that, it kind of launched me into just writing and publishing and book coaching. But I was so passionate about the word of God. All I wanted to do was talk about the word. So I started taking classes all over the DMV, free classes. I'm like, I need to know the word. Somebody teach me the word. Like, I need to know what this means. Like, what does this mean? Is Jesus real? Is this real? Like, were my encounters with God real? And I just kept getting confirmations from the Lord. He kept speaking to me. Yes, I'm real, Natasha. I'm real. You heard my voice. You heard me. And so how I finally left that relationship alone was crazy. The December before I was about to publish my book, my ex followed me home, and he followed me to my apartment, and I had groceries in my hand, and he started taking the groceries out of my hand and throwing them everywhere. My book hadn't come out yet, and started throwing my groceries all over the complex. And I was like, I heard the voice of God. He raised his hand to hit me, and I heard the voice of God. And I told him, I said, don't hit me. And he stopped, and he turned around and ran. And I heard God's voice say, live or die. And when I heard his voice, like literally, I heard him. And he was like, you live or die right now. It's like, you have to make a choice. And I went in the house. I lived with me and my sister lived together at the time. And I went in the house, and I was like, I'm never talking to him again. And she was like, what? I was like, never. And I blocked him, and he continued to call, continued to show up at my house. And it was crazy. And then God told me a few days later, on January 2nd, he was like, now publish that book. And I got death threats from my ex. When I started to market the book online, I got death threats. I got hate mail. My name was slandered on the internet. I'm talking about slandered. My hashtags were invaded. It was crazy. And I was so scared. And I was like, Lord, why would you tell me to publish this book with all this stuff and all these things are happening to me? Why would you do that to me? Like, my career is going to be over. Like, I'm a publicist. My image matters. Like, no one's going to want to work with a publicist who had all this crazy stuff going on. Like, why would you tell me to do this? I was mad at God. But the weekend before my book came out, I went to the church that I attended at the time, and the pastor preached on Hannah in First Samuel. Yeah, I think Second Samuel chapter 1, I believe. No, First Samuel. First Samuel chapter 1. Hannah, and she couldn't have a child. And she went up to the temple, and she started praying, and she said, Lord, if you give me a child, if you give me a male son, I will dedicate his life to you. He'll be yours. And I heard the Lord again say, that's what your prayer is. So I went home and I prayed. I was like, God, if you bless this book, if you don't allow me to be humiliated, if you don't allow my life to be over after telling this story, I'll dedicate my whole life to you. I was like, my whole life, my business, every word, every communications, everything will be dedicated to you. And he was like, you are a communicator for Christ. And so I was like, he pulled me out of communicating for the world and communicating, doing what I wanted to do, my big dreams of being a corporate PR person and big time office, all of that. He's like, no, you're a communicator for Christ. That's who you are. And so after that, everything took off for me.
And I want to, there is a very exciting thing, because one of the things is you have a new book, and it's called The Absence of Excess: Stories of Cultural Immersion, Godly Love, and Living Surrendering from a Black American Missionary in Africa. How is that gone? That's a long title, but there's a lot to it, right? There's a lot to it. So what I want to do is I want to show, I have some videos and some pictures, right? Mm-hmm. And so you were a missionary in Africa, yes. Right? Tanzania. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So I want to play this one video, and I want you to explain it after I play this video with you and some women there.
Okay.
So that is you in Tanzania, and I want you to tell the story about that video.
Yes. So my assignment in Tanzania, I was a theological educator. So I was a Bible teacher at a Bible college, and most of my students were males, and many of the females, I had about 4 female students. And so many of the females, they weren't in the classes with us because they could only speak Swahili. So I wanted to connect with the females in the village. So one of my favorite people, her name is Mama Ngali. I talked to her, and she teaches the females, and she just does everything. She's amazing. So I was like, Mama Ngali, I want to have something with the women. I really want to connect with the women. And she's like, okay, what do you want to do? So I decided to host the social in my living room. So that was my house in Tanzania. And all the women, like it was about 30 of them and their children, came over. I baked cookies and made lemonade. And it's so funny because I ran out of lemonade and ran out of cookies. I underestimated how many people there were going to come. I didn't think that many were going to come, but it was about 30 or so. And so
you were well received by them. You were well received.
Yes, absolutely. And I love them. Oh my gosh. And they loved me. And even though there was a language barrier, it was like all love. You know what I mean? It was just, they're like, Madam, they call me Madam Natasha. And they're like, Madam, karibu. So like, you're welcome. You're welcome. Karibu nimbani. You're welcome to my home. And I'm like, karibu nimbani. So you're welcome to my home.
Wow. So in you turning your life around and making this pledge to God, and now doing PR as far as connecting people to God, how did it get you to head out and do your missionary work in Africa, specifically Tanzania?
Yes. So I went on my journey. God ended up sending me to seminary. So that's why I have the second master's degree, Master of Divinity. So during my seminary experience, I lived there, and I ended up going to Israel first in 2018. And when I went to Israel, I fell in love with the people. I went to an international school. So many of my friends in seminary, they were from India and different parts of Africa and Asia and, different parts of the world. And so for the first time, I was introduced to the global body of Christ. Like for most of my life, I had been a part of the Black church, and I love the Black church, you know what I mean? Or even the Western church. But for the first time, I had been introduced to the global body of Christ. So when I went to Israel, my heart broke because Christ was there. He walked on those streets, but, Israelite, Jewish people many of them don't accept Christ as their savior, and they don't believe, and so my heart was broken for people who don't believe and who don't have that relationship with Jesus, who don't have these encounters like I've had and my friends have had. And I'm like, I want everyone to have these encounters. So I really wanted to be sent. At the same time, I was taking a lot of missions courses in school. And I realized that of all of the missionaries in the world, only 3% go to countries that are closed to the gospel, meaning it's illegal to preach Jesus. So I wanted to be one of those 3%. So I was like, okay, Lord, send me to Israel, send me to Asia, Southeast Asia, or send me to one of these closed countries. I want to do that. And during my last year in school, the Lord began to show me, like, you're a Bible teacher and you can go there, but not now. So I believe, so when I came home from Israel, I knew I had a call to the mission field. And so I immediately began to search for agencies, like mission agencies that I could partner with, that could, that I could go. So I started to interview with them that summer, and one of them, the one that I went with, was Africa Inland Mission. And my mobilizer, she worked with me for a year. And just me and all my indecisiveness and my fear and my uncertainty, not knowing if I wanted to go, if I could survive overseas. And just working with her and meeting other missionaries from Africa, she helped me, and God simultaneously was solidifying my call as a Bible teacher and as someone who helps people along in their walk with Christ, discipleship. And so I just began to, I called her. I just heard the Lord again, and he was like, call her back. And it was a year later. And I was like, I'm ready. And I was like, but this time I don't believe that, because initially I thought that I was supposed to go to a closed country as a business, as missionary. So basically that is when people go to countries that are closed to the gospel and they have creative access. So they start businesses, or maybe they're students, they do something creatively to help them, connect with the natives. And I was like, that's what I wanted to do at first. But the Lord was like, no, you're going to teach, you're going to disciple people, you're going to share stories, you're going to let people know how they are part of God's story and why their stories are important. And so I knew that's what the mission was, and not what I initially thought. So she and my team at AIM, they helped me find the right connection, the right, the right assignment. And so I had been offered other assignments from AIM, and I was like, no, that's not it. I'm not feeling, the wind of the Lord on that one. Nope, that's not it. And when this one came along, God had given me a time frame to be overseas, which was September to December. He had given me a time frame, and he given me a mission. So this, in the email, it said this assignment will be September to December. And I was like,
wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So I started to pray on it, and I asked God for confirmation after confirmation, and he gave me about 7 confirmations in 1 week, including the same scripture, the same passage that I was in prayer one day, and I was like, okay, Lord, confirm for me if this is what I'm supposed to do. And I turned and opened the book to the book of Isaiah, and there's a chapter, I think it's in Isaiah 41 or 46, and it says, I have told you, I have said it from the beginning. And I was like, okay, I think this is it. But can you confirm it again? And I turned the Bible again, and it opened, and the only scripture that was highlighted was Isaiah 43, 18 and 19. I am doing a new thing. Can you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. So the night before, I had been watching videos on Tanzania, and somebody said wilderness. They said Tanzania is a wilderness. And I was like, there's that word. But then the Lord reminded me 3 years prior, when he sent me to seminary, the passage that was preached was Isaiah 43, 18 and 19. I am doing a new thing. And I was like, okay, this is it. And he kept confirming it even after that. And so I just knew I belonged there.
So you were teaching in Tanzania for that time period. How was that transition, being in the United States and going to Tanzania, and then the language barrier? How was that?
Oh my gosh, I talk about this in my book, right? The absence of access and just the process of getting there. It was a challenge. It was so much it was a challenge. Okay. Like getting there was a lot of different obstacles. I had luggage problems, and I got held up at the border in Tanzania, almost didn't get in the country.
Wow.
So,
are you doing this by yourself, or there's a group with you going to
I was by myself, and I was meeting a couple who have an amazing family, and they live there, and they work at the school. They serve at the school, and they were at the airport to meet me there. But I traveled by myself.
Mm-hmm. And who did you teach? I know you talked about most of your classes were men or young men or young boys. Which one? I'm sure I'm not.
Yep, they were men and women. I had a few women students, but mostly men, and they were pretty much called to spread the gospel in Tanzania. So they were ministers, pastors, evangelists, missionaries, and they were being trained. So we were training them to go to unreached people groups. So the people that I was teaching, they're ministers in Tanzania who are going to those unreached people groups of people who don't know Jesus.
So let's see a little clip, video of you actually teaching in Tanzania, doing your missionary work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, low five. High five. Low five. High five. All right, thank you, everyone.
So what was your biggest obstacle when you first arrived in Tanzania, right? And I don't know if their country has where women are held in a different esteem. I mean, you're teaching men. Was there anything like that you had to, I mean, I know they prepared you for going to, do missionary work, but was there anything like that you had to kind of confront or deal, or was it in the back of your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. When I first went, when I was on my way there, I was like, Lord, I'm going to be teaching mainly men. Why would they listen to me? I'm a female from America. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I thought that I didn't think I would be respected there, but they have the utmost respect in the culture that I was in. I served with the Sakuma tribe, and they are super amazing, loving people. My biggest obstacle was the language challenge. And then the village and the school is very conservative. So as you see, long skirts and dresses.
Notice that.
The village, the women don't wear pants or shorts or any of that. So that was a challenge, like getting used to the attire. And I didn't know a lot of the rules. I was breaking these rules all the time. Okay. I would be in places where it was only men, and I'm like, hey, there's no women here. And I'm like introducing myself, like, my name is Natasha. And it was all the women would be outside in the back, like cleaning or something. And I'm like the only
Americans. Woman. Yes. Yeah. Americans, when you go to other countries, they are definitely, things are really different. And many of them are years and years and years behind us. What would you say was the biggest lesson you learned while in Tanzania?
There were so many, but one of them is honestly how to love better. How to love better. The people that I serve with, they love you so deeply. They love so genuinely. And, in America and in the West, we say, I love you so much. And we like, hey, love you. We say it, we throw that around so much. But there it's like, no, really, they love you. Like they knock on your door. They don't knock on the door. They come at any time. They don't knock. They say, Hody. So at any time they'll stand outside. You'll hear people like, Hody, Hody, Hody. And so that means they knock. It means knock in Swahili, but they don't knock. So at any given time, people are coming all the time, visitors coming to pray with you, coming to bring you food, coming to invite you for dinner, coming to share, something that they need with you. And so really how to love like God commands us to.
I have another video that I want to show, and then I want you to explain it. Okay.
Okay.
Listen, I think I've done some of those moves myself. They are having a ball. Tell us what was that scene?
So that was Sunday service at Simba Wayuta, and that means Lion of Judah Academy. And so several times I was able to minister at different schools, at an orphanage, at different churches. And so that was one Sunday I was about to minister at Simba Wayuta, and they have between like 200 and 300 students there. And so I was sitting in the front row, but behind me was about a few hundred kids behind me. So that was the worship dancers.
Oh my goodness. I'm sitting here and I'm moving, and I'm sure you were too. They just seem so happy, and I just love seeing that. So your book entitled The Absence of Excess: Stories of Cultural Immersion, Godly Love, and Living Surrendered from a Black American Missionary in Africa. It's available where, and what is, if you had to summarize it, what would you say are behind the pages?
Yeah, so you can go to natashatbrown.com, natashatbrown.com, and that has the book, and it also has a companion journal, which is a full color 100-page journal that has some pictures from my time in Tanzania as well. And so this book really, it talks about, it addresses so many different issues, a lot of things that come to the surface when you're serving, but it's designed to take the reader from the Western world, from our society, through a journey with God. So we confront issues like emotional baggage, because these are things that I had to confront. Emotional baggage. When God wants to take us from one season to the next, are we light enough, or do we have too much stuff? Because the Bible tells us that you can't pour new wine into old wineskins. And so we deal with issues like that. We talk about, how to have faith for what you are believing God for. We deal with practical issues even that went on, while I was there, entrepreneurship. They have such a society of entrepreneurship, and they're hard workers, but we look at issues like, well, why is there poverty? Why is the poverty so high? So that takes us really deep into looking at like globalism and how the West and China has treated the continent of Africa. We talk about the importance of serving of African Americans. So the title talks about a Black missionary in Africa, because traditionally the missionary culture has been mainly Caucasian. And so in many African countries, the people will look at Caucasians as if they're the savior. And so I found it very important, even in conversations that I had, I talk about all of this. Many people where I was, they had never met an African-American person. And so a lot of people who had never been out of villages in Tanzania, they didn't even realize that Black people lived in America. So I talk about the importance of having representation from Black people in countries like Tanzania. And so we deal with so many different issues, spiritual warfare. What does that look like? How do you fight it? How do you serve God when you're single? Because one of the things that I faced is being a single missionary, where is in my culture that I was in there, marriage is you're esteemed higher,
Right.
when you're married.
Right.
But what happens when you're single? And how will you say yes to God when you're single? And so we deal with so many different issues. And so you're going to basically go on a journey with God. You're going to go on a journey with God. When you read this book, you're going to, it's going to prompt you to pray. It's going to prompt you to write, and it's going to prompt you to reflect.
So let me ask you, what could you say to someone who's thinking about being a missionary in Africa? What advice could you give them? Is there any direction? Clearly there's a need. And I think most of us have seen videos of missionaries, and you're right, most of them that I've seen have all been white couples. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I do understand how impactful it must be for them to see someone that looks just like them and the life that they're living.
Yeah. So first things first is you definitely want to pray. You want to pray and make sure that you're called to this, because I think that we can all, if you're a believer, you can be missional, whether you are living overseas in Africa or Asia or India, or if you're in the United States. We can all be missional Christians. And so that means living on mission for God, being ready and willing to share the gospel, being ready and willing to share your testimony of how God delivered you, and being ready and willing to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And so we can all be missional, but is everyone called to be a missionary? That means you are sent. That means that you actually have an assignment, whether it's at home or overseas, and you need to pray first and realize that, hey, yes, I'm called. I want to do it. And then I would say connect with other missionaries. Begin to ask questions. What does this look like? How would this look? And tell your friends and family to pray with you. And then, whether you go with your church or whether you go with a mission organization such as like I did, you can find the right organization that fit your values, that fit where you are going to be going. If you're being sent to another country, you want to make sure that the organization that you're with fit your values, and there'll be people and support there with you.
I think that's just a beautiful thing to be able to give of yourself. And I have traveled the world. My mother is English and my father is American. And I think one of the things that when I run into most people who have only been in the United States and only seen 3 or 4 states around them is just understanding their place in the world and how other people live. I mean, I've been to I've been to Guyana, South America. I've been to Dubai and to Egypt and Greece. I mean, these are things that you have to experience and understand that. And I think that that's an amazing venture that you took and then put it into words. You said it was your calling, so that hopefully there's someone out there that hears that and can follow and do something. And you are actually saying some people may not want to go overseas, but you're encouraging them they can do it right here at home.
Yes. So if, we all have a responsibility. So you might not go overseas, but you can you can live on mission, here, wherever you are. And if you're a believer, you're probably familiar with the book of Acts. And in the book of Acts, in Acts chapter 1, verse 8, Christ said, you're going to be my witnesses in Jerusalem, in Judea, and all of Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. And so Jerusalem was home. So they were going to witness to Christ at home. So we have to start at home. And then we impact our neighborhood, our region. And then we think about going global. But then no matter where you're serving, you can always pray. So everyone has a responsibility to either pray, give, or go. So if you're not going to go, you need to be praying for people who are going. The Bible tells us to pray to the Lord of the harvest to send workers into his harvest field. And that's what he's talking about, praying for people who are going. Or you can send. So you can donate, you can give, you can support missionaries overseas. You can find out who's giving, get connected to missionaries and support them. Open your home to missionaries when they're coming home on furlough and they need a place to stay. Send care packages so you can give or you can go.
Now, we have a number of people who've been commenting, and I'm going to read some of the posts made to you. This is Charmaine, and she says, congratulations, Natasha, blessings. That's one message. We have another one that's coming in. This is from her as well. This is such a powerful testimony, Natasha. Taylor, thank you for the show. God's hands are on you for so much more, Natasha. That's a beautiful message. Patrick simply just said, wow. I agree, Patrick. Wow. You are exactly right. Awesome interview. Thank you so very much. I mean, it's true. And I think I saw Barbara Street Holder up there. So I think I'll see a message from her in a little bit as well. There it is. This is such a blessing. Thank you, Taylor and Natasha, for the gifts that God has given you both. That's Barbara Holt Street. Why do I always want to change your name around? Barbara Street Holder. So I want to, thank you for the comments that you've been making. I think we may have another picture or two that I want to show. There's a group shot of you and the women. I'm not sure if these are the women that you welcomed in your home there. Let's see if we can get our producer to pop it up on the screen real quick. And as he works to pull that up, I'm sure he's like, Taylor, there you go. Oh, this is your actual book. And so how do they get a copy of this, by the way, the absence of excess?
Excess, Yep, they can go to natashatbrown.com. It's also on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple, wherever you like to read your books. But if you go to my website, natashatbrown.com, I'll send you an autographed copy.
Wow, that is wonderful. I cannot imagine going there and being able to come back and share the experiences. That is really, really exciting. So again, what can
this is a picture. This is a story. Me and the baby. That's baby Natasha.
Okay.
And so one of my students and his wife had a baby and named her Natasha. And so we were at her baby blessing ceremony, and it was, I write about this in a chapter called Baby Blessings in my book. One thing that the Lord showed me is like when babies are born there, the baby brings the village together. And so we were at this baby blessing, and we all like passed the baby around, hugged her, sang songs, and blessed her. And it was such a beautiful, beautiful experience. It was one of the best experiences that I had while I was there. Oh, this is one of the BBs. BB means grandma. Grandmother. And so this is the BB of one of my students. She wanted to eat lunch with us, me and another missionary. So afterwards, I just had to give her a big hug. And that picture, she gave me permission to use that picture on the book. So this is her.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. Oh, now what is the market?
Yes, we're in the city. And so in the city, outside of the village, about 90 minutes away in Mwanza, you will see so many people selling everything there. So we have a chapter in the book called Industrious Entrepreneurs. So they sell coconuts and peppers and peanuts, and they do hair, they sell clothes. Wow. And so we're going to see all of these people outside on the street. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's me. I was, this is like cultural appropriation. You in Africa, you in villages, you see women with things on their head, like walking. Well, they don't have their hands on the things because they usually have something that helps it hold them up. But I didn't have that. So I was trying to do that, and then it was going to fall. So I had to hold it. What? It was a plant. I ministered that morning, and I used that plant on my head as a part of my sermon. And that was the plant.
Wow. Wow. These are some beautiful pictures. I know the stories behind the page and the cover of this book are inspiring. And this is really, really, it must be giving the baby back.
Yep, I'm giving the baby.
Oh, look at these pictures. Oh, I love it.
That was,
and I didn't even recognize you in the pictures. Can I tell you? For a second, I'm like, oh, there she is.
Yeah, I was really sick there because we ate so much.
Now I have to ask you that. So we have about 8 minutes left. So what was the food like there versus home?
Oh my gosh,
the situation is different.
It was so different, but it was definitely a limited amount, but we live off the land there. Okay. So we're eating food that was grown. I had a garden in my yard. So me and my neighbor actually grew food. So we ate, potatoes a lot, beans, rice. Yes. We live near Lake Victoria. The village is right next to Lake Victoria. So fish, fresh.
No, are you serious? Mm-hmm. Did you fish?
No.
I love to fish, but that would be, oh my goodness. So what about the meat, like beef or cattle? Is there
so they slaughter chicken, they slaughter beef, lamb, cow, all of that. All of it. And I ate a lot of slaughtered meat, and we would go to Mwanza. So the other missionary family there, they go to Mwanza, which is the nearest city, and it's about an hour and a half away. So they go there on Fridays to go to the grocery store. And so oftentimes I would send my grocery list with them or either go with them.
Oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. Natasha T. Brown, I can talk to you forever. I'm so excited to have you on the show, to hear about your book, to hear about your mission. Real quick, what can we expect from you in the next year or two, especially since we're in the middle of this pandemic? I know it's changed your life. I know we didn't have a lot of time to talk about that, but what's next for you?
Yeah. So right now, I'm having conversations. I just want to have as many conversations about the book, The Absence of Excess, because there's so many different goals, the things that the Lord put on my heart for this book. One, to mobilize people to go and be on mission. So I want to have a lot of conversations, many conversations about the book and just about serving and what's that look like and things like that. But I also have a publishing company. And so right now and in the future and just going forward, working with authors who have important stories to share, coaching them through their stories, publishing their books, editing, just doing all of that, really sharing stories and sharing Jesus. That's all that you can expect from me.
Natasha, how do we reach out or connect with you?
Yes, please join me. Follow me on Instagram. I'm at Natasha T Brown. On Facebook, Natasha T Brown. You can search Communicator for Christ and you'll find my public Facebook page, and visit natashatbrown.com. And that will lead you to the book and my publishing company, and also prayer calls that I do, and just a number of different things. Yes.
I like that, Communicator for Christ. That's a good one. I'm surprised that was available for you to snatch up. How can authors, I mean, so through your website, is that how aspiring authors can reach you and connect with you?
Yes. And the website, you can definitely go to natashatbrown.com, or you can go to ELOHAI and that's spelled ELOHAI publishing.com. And so if you go there, we actually do complimentary discovery meetings 4 times a month. So definitely just love connecting with authors and hearing their stories, seeing how we can help, and just supporting them any way possible. So sign up for our email list at ELOHAIpublishing.com or natashatbrown.com, and we're going to reach out. You'll get all the news about new books coming out. We have so many books. So even if you go to our bookstore, all the books that I've written, as well my books that I've written, because I've written for other people, and many of our other authors, their amazing books are in our bookstore. So you can definitely just connect with us.
I love it. Natasha T. Brown, author, publicist, and a communicator for Christ. So we have really appreciated you being on the show and sharing your words and wisdoms, and being so candid about your situation with domestic violence and how you got out of it. And I do hope, if for those that are tuning in and watching the program, because this stays up on YouTube, that it could be a word of encouragement for them. Everyone's situation is different, but help in getting out is important, and talking about it and not making it only certain people go through it. We want to dispel those myths and let women and men know that they're not alone. There is help, and there are people out there for them. I just really, really can't thank you enough for joining us today. And I look forward to hearing the follow-up, seeing what your next book will be. And I want to make sure I let our guests know next week on Fire on NNPA and Black Press USA is Trey Chaney. You remember him? He's from The Wire. So he's going to be on the show. And let me tell you, he's got a lot going on. In fact, he's still filming. So we are looking forward to talking to him and getting caught up with him. But I want to thank our guest again, Natasha T. Brown. Thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, until next week, God bless and goodbye.
Bye.